If your blood flow does not feel the same after 60 and your legs seem heavier, your feet stay cold longer than they used to, or you get that drained feeling even when you're trying to do everything right. There is one important thing most seniors never hear. Sometimes the problem is not only how much water you drink, it is what your body is able to do with that water once it is inside you. And that is exactly why so many people feel frustrated. They drink more water. They try to stay active. They cut back on sugar. They do what they have been told. But they still wake up with stiffness. They still notice slower recovery. They still feel like circulation is not supporting them the way it once did. What surprises many older adults is that one small addition to water can sometimes make that daily habit work in a very different way. Not because it is magic, not because it replaces medical care, but because, in the right context, it can support hydration, circulation, and the way blood vessels respond throughout the day. And before we get into the most powerful addition, there is something important you need to understand first. Some of the most common healthy hydration habits after 60 are actually too weak to create the kind of change people are hoping for. They sound good, they seem responsible, but they do very little to help the body use water in a smarter way. That is where this becomes interesting. Because the ingredient I am going to build toward is not the first thing most people think of. In fact, many seniors overlook it completely because it seems too simple. Yet once they understand what it does inside the body, the difference starts to make sense. But to appreciate why that final addition stands out, we need to begin with a few options that help lay the foundation. The first one is lemon. Now, lemon water is not a new idea. Most people have heard of it. Some already drink it. And that familiarity is exactly why many underestimate it. A squeeze of fresh lemon in water can do more than improve taste. One of the biggest reasons seniors stop drinking enough water consistently is not because they do not know hydration matters. It is because plain water starts to feel boring, easy to forget, or strangely unsatisfying. So the first advantage of lemon is compliance. It makes the habit easier to maintain. But there is another layer here. Lemon provides natural compounds that can support the body's overall vascular health, and it also encourages many people to drink a little more steadily instead of taking in large amounts all at once. That matters more than most realize. Better hydration patterns can influence blood volume, circulation efficiency, and how energized the body feels during the day. Even more importantly, many seniors do not notice that mild dehydration does not always feel like thirst. Sometimes it feels like fatigue. Sometimes it feels like mental fog. Sometimes it feels like sluggishness in the arms and legs. So when a simple addition makes water easier to drink, that alone can create noticeable improvement. The best way to use it is simple. Squeeze fresh lemon into a glass of water in the morning or early afternoon. Not too much, just enough to slightly flavor the water without making it harsh on the stomach or teeth. For some people, that becomes the easiest way to turn hydration into a daily routine instead of an occasional effort. Still, lemon is only the beginning, because if you want to move from drinking more water to helping the body hold on to hydration more effectively, the next addition becomes much more interesting. That is chia seeds. This is where many seniors start paying closer attention, because chia does something plain water cannot do on its own. Once soaked, chia seeds form a gel-like texture that slows the way fluid moves through the digestive system. In practical terms, that can help the body stay hydrated longer instead of letting everything pass through too quickly. And that matters for circulation. When hydration is not maintained well, the blood can become less efficient in supporting the tissues that need steady flow. The body has to work harder. Some people feel that as weakness. Others feel it as low energy, dry skin, or that strange sense that their body is running below capacity. Supporting better fluid balance can help create a more stable internal environment. Chia also brings something else to the table: minerals and plant compounds that fit naturally into a circulation-friendly routine. It is not about one dramatic overnight effect. It is about helping your body operate under better conditions, especially if you are already trying to eat smarter after 60. The easiest method is to add a small amount of chia seeds to a glass of water and let them sit long enough to expand. That part matters. Dry chia should not be swallowed by the spoonful. Once they have absorbed water, the drink becomes much easier to tolerate and much more useful as part of a hydration strategy. Some seniors like it first thing in the morning. Others prefer it in the middle of the day when energy starts dipping. Either way, it creates a different experience than plain water. And for some people, that alone changes how consistently they hydrate. But there is a mistake many older adults make here. They assume that if hydration lasts longer, circulation is automatically optimized. Not quite. Because holding on to water is helpful, but blood flow also depends on how relaxed and responsive the blood vessels are. And that brings us to a completely different category of support, one that starts to shift this conversation from basic hydration into vascular function. Before I get there, though, there is one more addition worth mentioning, because it helps correct a problem that gets more common with age and is often ignored until symptoms show up more clearly. That addition is a tiny pinch of mineral-rich salt. Now, this needs to be understood carefully. This is not about turning your water into something salty or overdoing sodium. And it is not appropriate for everyone, especially if a doctor has told you to strictly limit salt. But for some older adults, especially those drinking a lot of plain water without enough mineral balance, a very small amount of the right kind of salt can make that water feel more useful to the body. Why? Because hydration is not just about liquid, it is also about electrolytes. Without enough mineral support, water does not always distribute and function as efficiently as people expect. Some seniors keep drinking and drinking, but still feel washed out, weak, or not fully replenished. In those cases, the issue may not be quantity alone. A tiny pinch of mineral-rich salt in a large glass of water can help create a more balanced hydration profile. Some people notice it most in the morning, especially if they wake up feeling dry, low on energy, or oddly sluggish despite drinking enough the day before. Again, subtle is the key word. Not a spoonful, not a strong taste. Just enough to support the fluid, not dominate it. And yet, even this is not the most surprising part of the story. Because lemon helps make water easier to drink. Chia helps it stay with you longer. Minerals can help the body use that water more intelligently. But none of those directly address one of the biggest reasons blood flow seems to slow down with age: the natural loss of flexibility and responsiveness inside the vessels themselves. That is where the next stage changes everything, because there is one addition that starts working less like a hydration trick and more like a circulation strategy. And once you understand why that matters, you will see why so many seniors completely misjudge which ingredient in this list deserves the most attention. One of the biggest misunderstandings about circulation after 60 is thinking the issue begins in the blood itself. Very often, the bigger issue is the condition of the pathways the blood has to move through. When blood vessels lose some of their natural responsiveness, The body has to work harder to deliver oxygen and nutrients where they are needed most. That is when ordinary things can start feeling less ordinary. A short walk feels heavier on the legs. Standing too long becomes uncomfortable. Recovery takes longer. You may even notice that your hands and feet do not warm up as easily as before. And that is why the next edition deserves much more attention than most seniors give it. Beetroot. This is where simple hydration starts becoming a more targeted circulation habit. Beetroot stands out because it contains natural nitrates. Once inside the body, those compounds can support the production of nitric oxide, which plays an important role in helping blood vessels relax and widen. And when vessels are more open and responsive, blood can move with less resistance. That one shift matters more than many people realize, because better flow is not just about the heart pushing harder. It is also about whether the vessels are cooperating. When they do, circulation tends to become more efficient. Some seniors describe it as feeling lighter. Others notice better stamina during the day. Some say they simply feel less stuck in their body. That is what makes beetroot different from the earlier additions. Lemon helps you drink more consistently. Chia helps improve hydration staying power. Minerals can help balance the fluid. But beetroot begins to support the actual mechanics of circulation in a more direct way. The easiest way to use it is not by turning your kitchen into a laboratory. A small amount of beetroot powder mixed into water is usually the most practical option. Some people prefer it in the morning, especially before a walk or light movement, because that is when they want better circulation support the most. Others use a diluted beet drink earlier in the day and avoid taking it too late in the evening. Now, there is something important here that many people get wrong. They expect the body to respond only when something feels dramatic. But circulation support often works in quieter ways. First, better endurance, less heaviness, more comfort while moving. Fewer moments where the body feels sluggish for no clear reason. Small improvements repeated day after day often matter more than one sudden sensation. And yet, even with beetroot, many seniors still miss a critical piece. Because opening up the vessels is valuable, but circulation also depends on how well the body handles inflammation and irritation in the vascular system over time. This is one reason blood flow can feel unpredictable. Some days are better. Some days everything feels tight, heavy, or slow again. That is where the next addition becomes surprisingly powerful. Ginger. Most people think of ginger as something for the stomach, or maybe for tea when they are not feeling well. But ginger can do far more than that. It contains active compounds that support healthy circulation and may help the body manage inflammatory stress more effectively. And this matters because irritated tissues and stressed blood vessels do not function at their best. For older adults, that can show up in subtle ways long before it becomes something obvious. You may feel more stiffness in the morning. You may notice that movement takes longer to wake up the body. You may feel like your system needs extra effort just to get going. Supporting the body with something that fits both circulation and comfort can make a difference that feels broader than expected. Ginger also has another advantage. It creates a warming effect that many seniors find especially noticeable. That does not mean it is heating the blood in some dramatic way. It means the body often feels more awake, more active, and less dull after taking it, especially when paired with warm or room temperature water. A practical way to use it is with a small amount of fresh grated ginger steeped in water, or a modest amount of ginger powder mixed into a drink. The key is not excess. Too much can be harsh for some people. A gentle amount is usually enough. But here is where the real retention point of this whole topic begins to show itself. A lot of seniors will hear about beetroot and ginger and assume the stronger option must be the one that tastes bolder or feels more intense. That is not always true. Sometimes the addition that seems the most ordinary ends up creating the most meaningful difference because of what it helps the body do consistently, not dramatically. And that leads directly to the final addition. Because the most effective habit is not always the one that gives the strongest first impression. It is the one that quietly supports vessel function, circulation efficiency, and daily consistency in a way the body can actually use again and again. Before we get there, there is one caution worth keeping in mind. No addition to water should be treated like a replacement for medical care, especially if someone has a history of heart disease, kidney issues, blood pressure concerns, or takes medication that affects fluid balance or circulation. The goal here is not to override that. The goal is to strengthen a daily habit in a way that supports the body more intelligently. And once you look at it that way, the final piece starts making much more sense. Because it is not flashy. It is not trendy. And most people underestimate it precisely because it sounds too simple to be the most useful one on the list. But when seniors begin using it the right way, that is often when they start saying something shifted. Walking feels smoother, the body feels less sluggish, and water finally seems to do more than just pass through. That final addition is where this all comes together. The final addition is cinnamon. And this is exactly where many people get surprised, because cinnamon does not sound as impressive as beetroot. It does not have the same circulation superfood reputation. It does not feel dramatic. But that is precisely why it gets overlooked. What makes cinnamon so useful in a routine like this is that blood flow is not only about the vessels opening properly. It is also about the internal environment those vessels are dealing with all day long. And one of the biggest things that can quietly work against better circulation after 60 is unstable blood sugar. When blood sugar rises and crashes too often, the body pays a price. Energy becomes less steady. Inflammation tends to become more disruptive. The vascular system can become less comfortable, less responsive, and less efficient over time. Many seniors feel this without realizing what is behind it. They just notice that some days they feel drained, heavy, or unusually off even when they think they ate normally. That is where cinnamon earns its place. Cinnamon has been widely appreciated for its role in supporting healthier blood sugar handling. And when that part of the picture becomes more stable, the circulation side often benefits too. The body is better able to maintain a steadier rhythm. Energy tends to feel more even. That constant internal strain that comes from sharp ups and downs may begin to settle. And this is why cinnamon belongs at the top of a list like this. Not because it creates the most intense feeling in the moment, not because it is the trendiest, but because it supports one of the background problems that quietly makes circulation feel worse than it should. For many seniors, that is the missing link. They focus on drinking more water. They focus on walking more. They focus on reducing salt or avoiding sugar. But they never think about how one simple addition to water may help support the metabolic side of better blood flow. The practical use is easy. A small amount of cinnamon in warm water or room temperature water can become part of a morning routine or an early afternoon reset. Some people prefer to combine it with a squeeze of lemon. Others keep it simple and use it on its own. The key, again, is moderation. You want enough to make it part of the habit, not so much that the drink becomes unpleasant. And that points to the deeper lesson in this entire video. The most helpful water habit after 60 is usually not the one that sounds the most extreme. It is the one that makes hydration more consistent, gives the body better support, and fits naturally into everyday life. That is why these additions matter in layers. Lemon makes water easier to enjoy and easier to remember. Chia helps it stay with you longer. A tiny mineral boost can help water feel more useful. Beetroot supports vessel relaxation and flow. Ginger helps the body feel less stiff, less dull, and more supported. And cinnamon helps address one of the quiet patterns that can interfere with better circulation day after day. Once you see how those pieces connect, the whole idea changes. This stops being about plain water versus flavored water. It becomes a strategy, a smarter hydration habit, a more supportive circulation routine, a way to help your body work with you instead of constantly feeling one step behind. Now, that does not mean you need to use everything at once. In fact, that is another common mistake. People get excited, add too many things, and then have no idea what is actually helping. A better approach is to start simple. Choose one addition that matches what you are dealing with most. If plain water feels boring and hard to keep up with, start with lemon. If you feel like water goes right through you and does not seem to last, chia may be worth trying. If you want more direct circulation support, beetroot becomes far more interesting. If stiffness, sluggishness, or that slow start feeling is part of your day, ginger may fit better. And if you suspect energy swings and internal imbalance are making everything feel harder, cinnamon deserves serious attention. That kind of step-by-step approach gives you something much more valuable than hype. It gives you feedback, and once you notice how your body responds, the routine becomes personal, which is exactly what makes it easier to sustain. Because at the end of the day, the real goal is not to chase a miracle ingredient. It is to stop wasting a daily habit that could be doing more for you. You are already drinking water. You are already trying to take care of yourself. You are already making an effort. Sometimes the improvement begins when that effort becomes more targeted. And after 60, that matters. Small habits often create the biggest difference when they are repeated long enough and supported by the right choices. Better blood flow does not always begin with something dramatic. Sometimes it begins with a glass of water that finally works with your body instead of just passing through it. If this kind of practical health guidance speaks to you, subscribe to Senior Health Circle and stay with us. There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to helping the body stay strong, mobile, and supported after 60.